Let's go. Batter up. We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a ball game. For a ball game today. The fans are out to get a ticket or two. From Walla Walla, Washington to Kalamazoo. It's a beautiful...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's edition of Inside Pitch with me, Joe Mansolino, and my co-host slash producer, Mr. Brian Lehman. Brian, how are those slashes doing today?
Doing well. They've been slashing to the left and sometimes slashing to the right.
There you go. There you go. As long as they don't slash straight ahead, you're doing all right.
That's it. Kind of reminds me of an old football play.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to tonight. Having Bill Madlock on as a guest is just like probably one of my dreams come true. I mean, he was one of the best players to ever play the game, one of the best hitters out there, bar none. Somebody who definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame.
I agree with that. He's one of those guys that was a true character in the game. Anybody who ever got to see him play actually got to see a player play.
Yeah, I mean, he was fiery. He was always intense. Played to win, no doubt about it. Played to win. Played for 15 years, and in 15 years, he hit over 300 10 times.
Wow.
And one of the ones he missed was only 298. I mean, that's just amazing to me. Win the batting trophy 4 times, 2 times with a different team.
Wow.
I mean, that's just, incredible. All-Star 3 times, an All-Star MVP. I mean, just one heck of a ball player and of an athlete. And we'll get into that when you introduce him later in the show. But I'm really excited to have him on. It was very nice of him to come on and participate with us.
Good point. And put up with us.
And put up with us. There you go. There you go. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. He was somebody who, when I was playing, I wish I could hit the way he did. I think big leaguers wish they could hit the way he did, And again, how he's not in the Hall of Fame, I just don't understand.
Well, that's just it. Sometimes the politics of it all drives everything. And unfortunately, as we've talked about in the past with other great players, doesn't mean you weren't a great player. It just means somebody had a grudge a lot of times.
Exactly right. Usually writers, and for whatever reason they don't like you, and you're not in the Hall of Fame. It just isn't right. We've gone over the names of players several times. We'll do it again. But Bill Madlock belongs in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it.
Good point.
No doubt about it. Let's talk a little bit about the standings and where we are. In the National League East, the Braves have clinched their division. They'll be going to the playoffs, followed by the Nationals, the Mets, the Phillies, and your MIA Marlins. In the Central Division, the Cardinals have a spot in the playoffs. They just haven't clinched their division yet, but they're in first place in the Central, followed closely by the Brewers and the Cubs, and coming back behind them are the Reds and the Pirates. So there's a couple races still going on there for the wild card. And then in the National League West, the Dodgers have clinched the division. They were the first team to do so. And behind them are the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Padres, and the Rockies. All 20, 25, 30, and 33 games back. I mean, it's over. They ran away with it this year.
So what you're saying, next year there's hope.
Next year there's hope for everybody. Just ask the fans. Next year is the year. And it finally happened not too long ago for the Chicago Cubs, and they're in it right now. They could still make the wild card, so it's going to be very exciting to see.
Good point.
In the American League, the Yankees have clinched their division. They're in first place in the East, followed by the Tampa Bay Rays, who are still playing good baseball, the Boston Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Baltimore Orioles, who've lost enough games this year to put that in the column for next season also. Just a terrible year for Baltimore. In the Central, the Twins are in first, followed by the Cleveland Indians, and nobody yet has clinched that division. The White Sox are in third, followed by the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers. And in the American League West, the Houston Astros did clinch that division. They're playing great baseball, followed by the Oakland A's, the Texas Rangers, the Angels, and the Seattle Mariners. So those Astros and Yankees are in. Braves, Cardinals, and Dodgers are in. The American League still looking for a winner in the Central Division and the wild card. And the National League's looking for the wild card champ. So a few more weeks to go. It's going to be exciting as we move on.
Well, I know what Joe's going to be doing every night, watching baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, see what's going on. The races are really exciting. I mean, really exciting.
Sometimes it's actually fun to even watch some of the teams that are out of it when they start pulling up all the guys from the minors, so you can see what's coming down the road.
Yeah, and like I think what Jerry Royce last week said, you know, it's fun when you're out of it, but you can knock somebody else out of it too. So there's still some motivation there.
Seen that happen plenty of times.
Yeah, and been on both sides of that one, and it's a reality, you know, where the teams, you know, even your MIA Marlins, just because they're out of it doesn't mean they don't want to knock somebody else out of it.
Good point.
So,
of course, the way they're playing right now, they don't have to worry about knocking too many people out of too much unless it's out of their mojito.
They could beat Baltimore.
Well, yep, that's true. I'll leave it at maybe the Tigers.
Well, that could be too. That could be too. But we're coming down to the nitty-gritty. So before we get to Mr. Madlock, let's talk a little about some of the awards coming up at the end of the year. The National League MVP is probably a very good race. I say it belongs to Cody Bellinger.
Interesting. You got to give a little prop to Christian Yelich. You know,
Okay. I could see that.
Sometimes you just never know.
I could see that. I think it will hurt him in the fact that he's sitting out the last 3 weeks of the season with a broken body. But still,
I can relate to that.
He had a good enough season where you can rightfully say he deserves it. I think if either he or Bellinger win it, I'm okay with either one, really. I think Cody Bellinger deserves it, but Christian Yelich had a hell of a year too, so I could go with either one of those. I agree with your guy. I could see that.
Maybe we'll put a beer on it.
I'll do that. I'll pick Cody. All right, we're in. Let's talk about the American League. I will go with probably what would be deemed the underdog, and I'm going to pick Alex Bregman.
Wow, I'm shocked. I figured you'd go with Mike Trout.
No, and I'll tell you why. And we started talking about this a little bit on the show earlier in the year. I really think there needs to be two different awards, most valuable player and a player of the year, because I do think Trout is going to win the MVP again. He's won it before, but how many playoff games has he led his team to in his entire career? 0. He is not a most valuable player. The Angels would have come in last or next to last with him or without him. He didn't do anything to help them win. I think he's the player of the year for sure. But I think MVP, I have to give it to Bregman. He's a great, gritty player. He's got the Houston Astros. He has helped them get into the playoffs. I'm going to go with Bregman over your Trout. So we'll see if we're going fishing or if Bregman takes his team further in the playoffs.
I feel like I was a little fishing on that one anyway.
All right, let's go with Cy Young in the National League. I'm going to go with Max Scherzer of the Nationals.
Interesting. Just to be argumentative, how about Jacob DeGrom?
Okay, I could see that. Jacob DeGrom, I could see that. I mean, he's fun to watch. He's a tough pitcher, and probably he's who most people are thinking about right now. But I like Scherzer. I like his grit. I like when Martinez went out to pull him out of a game and he wouldn't give him the ball. He said, "No, I can get this guy out," and then he did. I like the fact that, well, I don't like the fact that he got a broken nose, but I like the fact that when he got the broken nose, he still made his next start. He toughed it up. I like his grit. I like his determination.
So what you're saying, he's not your typical player from this era.
No, he's definitely an old school style player. Very, very well said. He's definitely an old school style of player. The Nationals moved up into second place in that division in the National League East. They played good baseball. I think with Scherzer pitching the way he did, and if Dusty Baker was still their manager, I think the Nats could have and would have won the division.
Yep.
I think Dusty would have done it, and Scherzer would be the Scherzer that he is.
See, that's one of those players, or managers rather, you're wondering, why did you let this guy go?
I just don't understand.
That's one of those, I think they've regretted it. I'm sure the fans have regretted it because all you have to do is look at the history since, and you go,
Yeah. I mean, and he led them to 2 playoffs in a row, and that got him fired.
yeah. So we don't want to go to the playoffs. That costs money. Those airplane tickets?
Right. So they fired him, and they haven't been to the playoffs since. So maybe they accomplished their goal.
That's right. Saved a few beans. It's fitting. You're in Washington.
There you go.
It's all about the beans.
There you go. American League. Go ahead. Cy Young. Who's your pick?
Wow. Garrett Cole.
I really like him. He's strong. He's competitive. Yeah, man.
It's one of those, he's speechless.
I like him. I can go with him. I can also go, I'll take his teammate, though. I'll go with Justin Verlander.
Interesting.
Verlander has done it, years in a row. He's been in there.
So you're making it more of a career award than a year award?
No, even this year, I think Verlander, they're very comparable. I think Cole has few more strikeouts than Justin Verlander does, but I think Verlander is a Max Scherzer style, Don Drysdale style, Bob Gibson style pitcher, if you will, and not that Garrett Cole isn't, but I can't agree with you, so I'm going to go with Justin Verlander.
Let me pull the plug.
So we got 2 beers going and a fishing trip.
That's right.
All right. American League, I think that's done. I think Yordan Alvarez, you got to agree. I mean, he's the only guy really who's going to...
For Rookie of the Year?
Yeah. I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yes. Because, as a matter of fact, everybody is hyping him up.
They and deservedly so.
True.
I mean, he's a good player. I think that's a gimme. I don't even think there's a number 2 in that race.
Fair enough.
What about you for National League Rookie of the Year?
I think you have to give Pete Alonso a lot of consideration. Was he had 50 home
runs in a season?
So who's that sound like?
That'll be the answer to our trivia question later in the show.
That's it. And now that you can no longer answer that trivia question, we will give it out.
But I'm going to have to say that that's who it is, and there's going to be no contest there. I think in the National League it's Pete Alonso and it's Yordan Alvarez in the American League. I think those 2 are gimmies. So I can't bet you on any of those.
Well,
I'll bet you they win.
So typically with rookies of the year or whatnot, does that typically bode well for a player for the future, or is that more one of those, okay, you did good starting off, and then they fade? Just opinion, not fact.
Oh.
I like to throw a left-hand
I think
curves.
all in all, that's probably true. I mean, there are some rookies of the year who continued having success, and some that have made it into the Hall of Fame. But just off the top of my head, I think there are more who made it and then fizzled out. So I'll give you that one.
It's kind of like in the record business where they talk about one-hit wonders. You're a one-season, wow, look at him, come on. And then just...
Yeah, there are quite a few people who went from Rookie of the Year to the, if you will, the sophomore, second-year slump. And some of them bounce back, and some of them don't. And I really think it depends on their work ethic and who they are. Just so many players in today's game, and it was always this way, but there's more today that can't do it, don't make the adjustments. You start out well, you own a couple pitchers, they make adjustments to get you out, and you don't make your adjustments to be able to continue hitting them.
Good point.
And the ones who work at it do for the most part, but a lot just don't. So yeah, I would say just because you win a Rookie of the Year award, even probably this year with both of them being, I'm going to guess, close to unanimous winners, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be stars in the league.
What's sad is when you see a guy make Rookie of the Year and then a year or two later he's AAA, not for rehab, because his mind isn't in the game anymore.
And that happens. You get into your second year, sophomore season, and you struggle, and you don't make the adjustments. You get down on yourself, which makes it worse. Then the team gets down on you and sends you to AAA, and then you're a head case. And, sometimes you don't recover from that. Sometimes you battle back. I mean, like I said, there are several Rookies of the Year who had outstanding careers, but there are probably more that didn't, I would have to say.
Sometimes it's not a bad thing to be that guy that nobody really notices that much, but you're solid, you keep playing, and you stay with the team. Maybe you get traded, but you still stay with the team. That's not a bad place to be.
Not at all.
I mean, there's been a lot of guys that had good 4, 5, 10-year careers where they were never the star of the team, but
Right.
they kept playing.
Right.
And keep making cash and checks.
And, unfortunately, that's what it's all about, really, is longevity. And that you can do whatever it takes to stick around season after season. I think that's what any sport, that's what it's all about. How, it's not only what have you done for me lately, which it is, but it's also what have you done long term for me.
Well, here's another one. How about these players that are outfielders or whatever, and they fade, and they're like, oh, crap, this isn't working. So they go to learn to throw a knuckleball, and suddenly they're pitching in the major leagues as a knuckleball pitcher. You haven't seen a lot of that, but you've seen some, and that's when you see it, you're always like, you want to badmouth the guy, but you got to give him credit. He figured a way to get back in the league and stay there for a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those, throwing a knuckleball, I've done it playing around with my son in years past or with other people, and it's not the easiest thing to do.
It's definitely very tough to throw and to throw for strikes. Definitely.
Yeah, because
it's hard to hit, it's hard to catch, but I think it's just as hard to throw, to really master it.
Yeah, that's just it. You see that guy get up there, and you're like, he's going to bounce it, and the pitcher, or the batter rather, swings and misses. You're going, okay, maybe he doesn't have a bad plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and, one of my favorites, if not my favorite, and I think he is, knuckleballer of all time, is Charlie Huff. Just a great guy, great family guy. When I worked for the Braves, coaching their Scout League team, I was lucky enough to have his son, Aaron, on our team. But Charlie was just a tremendous knuckleball pitcher for a long time. Threw it well, threw it consistent. Who knows how he did it? We'll have to get him on Inside Pitch and let him share some of that knuckleball stuff with us.
Good point. Of course, which bring up the Braves, it kind of reminds you of Mr. Necro.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was a guy, he was scary with his sometimes.
That was a guy who we can get into a whole different topic about sometimes, where what all did he do to that baseball? Him, Gaylord Perry. You know, there were a few things going on with that baseball besides the knuckles.
Well, nail files are okay. Sometimes you get a hangnail out there.
Yeah, and they're in the Hall of Fame. Would that be the case today? Who knows?
Well, nowadays we'd have 25 people protesting because it's unfair advantage.
They would say something. I mean, they would definitely say something.
Of course, we've seen that with some of the hitters out there that were power hitters there for a while. Are no more.
Yeah, they did. The steroid game. I'll tell you what. If the steroid players, the known steroid players, make it into the Hall, then they're going to have to get a lot of other people in there too.
Good point.
A lot of the guys that we have talked about in the past, guys like Maury Wills, Gil Hodges, Jim Cott, Dave Parker, our guest tonight, Bill Madlock, those guys belong in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'm kind of excited that you got him on for tonight because, from what I gather, he's never been a fan of interviews. So you got to love a man who's willing to come see us boneheads. Yeah,
I'm really excited to have him on. He's like we said in the beginning of the show, one of the best hitters to ever play the game. Not just in this generation. He's one of the best hitters to ever play the game. He was a hard worker. He was just he played great defense mostly as a third baseman, sometimes second base, but usually the third baseman. Just a great player. Why don't we get him on the air?
You got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting our guest, Mr. Bill Madlock. Ladies and gentlemen, we have as our guest tonight, Bill Madlock. Before I introduce and talk to him, let me tell you a little bit about him. He was a 3-sport star in high school at Eisenhower High School in Decatur, Illinois, where he had 150 scholarship offers for basketball, 100 for football, and only 2 for baseball. And we know how great he was in baseball, so just imagine those other sports. He was drafted by the Washington Senators in the 5th round in 1970, who then became the Texas Rangers. He played with them in 1973, with the Chicago Cubs from 1974 to 76, for the San Francisco Giants from 1977 to 79, to the Pittsburgh Pirates from 79 to 85, the LA Dodgers from 85 to 87, and the Detroit Tigers in 87. He played 15 seasons, 10 years batting over 300, and one of the 5 that he didn't, he hit 298. He was tremendous. He was an All-Star in 1975 when he was an MVP, All-Star in 1981 and 83, a 4-time batting champion in 1975, 1976, 1981, and 1983. In 79, he was a World Series champ with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then later in life, he coached for the Detroit Tigers in 2000 and 2001. He had a career average of .305 with 2,008 hits, 163 home runs, 860 RBIs. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Bill Madlock. Bill, how are you today?
Oh, doing real good. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. Doing fine. You were just some hitter. Let me share a little more. Where in the batting champs, when you did win in 75, you had a .354 average. In 76, a .339 average. In 77 and 78, when you didn't win, your average was still .302 and .309. Then you won again in 1981 with a .341 average. In 82, you were second to Al Oliver with your .319 average, and you won again in 1983 with .323. That is really something.
Well, thank you. That put a lot of hard work into it.
Oh, and you could tell. I remember you always worked hard. It was fun watching you in your years where the Dodgers, where I could watch you before the game. I mean, it was always fun to see you, and you were a hard worker. Let's talk a little bit about that before you started playing. 150 scholarship offers for basketball. That had to feel incredible.
Well, like I said, it's been so long ago, I really don't, don't remember it. But we, nowadays you very seldom get to see a player playing two sports, no longer three sports. But back then, from Illinois, with the weather dictate what sports you played. So and I just played it. Not like in Vegas. Almost every kid here just playing one sport. Because it's dominated by long seasons.
Yeah, that's for sure. Football. What position were you in football?
Well, halfback, back there, running back. I was pretty quick back then. In Illinois, I was downstate Illinois, played a lot of schools from Chicago and, in the smaller schools in downstate Illinois.
That's very, very impressive. I'm sure most people don't know that about you. They just know how great of a baseball player you were. So let's talk a little bit about when you were hitting. Who were some of the most challenging pitchers for you?
Well, back then, I had a chance to face probably my toughest pitcher I faced was Steve Carlton, big lefty from Philadelphia. Then, Tom Seaver, Kuzman, Gibson, and guys like that. Those guys, they didn't look for the bullpen after 5 innings. If they started a game, they usually end the game.
Boy, isn't that the truth? That's when pitchers were pitchers.
Right.
When you were batting, did you have a favorite pitch, favorite location?
Well, fastball, everybody liked getting the fastball. It doesn't matter the location. I just was always looking, and we called it dead red, and I figured if I was looking for it, I could hit it.
And that you did. But with as good a hitter as you were, was there any pitchers that stands out in your mind as that he owned you and you could hardly hit off of him? I don't remember.
Well, J.R. Richards, especially down in the dome, that's probably he was about 6'9", and about the time he let loose of the ball, he was right out in front of you. And in the dome, the Astrodome, you couldn't see very good, so he had double whammy down there.
There's quite a few hitters that had problems with J.R. Richards. Boy, he was fun to watch. He was something.
Right.
You had the 1 year with the Tigers. Mostly though you were in the National League. But who was the best player that you think you saw playing either with or against when you were in the National League?
Well, I think one of the best players was Dave Parker, Mike Spence. Unfortunate, Dave's not in Hall of Fame. I think he should be in there. He was just an unbelievable throwing arm. He could hit for power. He could run. He was a great base runner, great RBI guy. And but Mike Spence was one of the best athletes and the best players I played against.
He was something too. My opinion, not as good as he was. He wasn't the hitter you were, but he was close. He was fun to watch.
He was a different type hitter. He was a home run hitter, but he could play that third base. Obviously, with the great hitter was Pete Rose. When you get 4,000 plus hits, you can hit the ball.
There's a little something to say for that. What about in the American League? Who were some of the favorite players you saw, or the best players you saw?
I didn't. It broke up a little bit. What did you say?
I'm sorry. Who were some of the best players in the American League that you played with or against?
Well, I think two players, who played, probably play combination as long than anybody. That was Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell. They were just unbelievable. Those two guys working together. I got a chance to play with them for 1 year, and that was fun watching them guys play.
They were, talk about a team strong up the middle. They were a dynamic second baseman and shortstop. They were really something.
Right, and I'm surprised Lou. I think eventually he'll get in the Hall of Fame too.
I think he will too. I think he should. Let's get into that right now. There are so many players, yourself included, that when it's Hall of Fame time and voting and stuff, we talk about on our show a lot about players who I think belong in the Hall of Fame and aren't in there for whatever reason, and you are one of those. We always talk about the fact that you belong. Dave Parker was another guy, the pitcher who you hit your first home run off of, Jim Cott. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Jim Clark, he's just unbelievable. You don't know what the criteria are going into the Hall of Fame. It seems like it changed every year, if you like it, if you don't like it. That's why, nothing against sports writers. I just don't think they should have 100% of the vote, because they won't vote for you for, some of the weirdest reason there is. They should have, broke it down, half sports writer, half to whoever. But, I guess either way, you're not going to get legitimate 100% right. But I don't think one group should have 100%, because I don't think that's fair, because I have seen some guys don't vote for him because he didn't give him an interview or yelled at him
Exactly.
or something, and I don't think that's fair.
I don't either. We talk about that a lot, and I think it is that simple. Some just, you didn't let me have an interview, you weren't good in an interview, and they hold it against them. And I think another one who we talk about who belongs is Maury Wills. I think that was one of his things, is that people just didn't like him, probably for more mistakes he made as a manager, but we think he belongs in there.
Yeah, but like I say, you can go on and on. So you get a headache thinking about it and trying to figure out the reason some guys not in there. So it's just unbelievable. So you really don't spend no time on it. So you just go about your life and hope it comes. If you don't, ain't nothing you can do about it.
Well, and that's true. And that you didn't play, really in the age of the designated hitter, per se. When I look now, Edgar Martinez, who is going into the Hall of Fame, all he did was hit. Your numbers are, to me, very comparable or better than him. You played the field too, and yet he's going into the Hall of Fame. It makes no sense to me.
Right. That's just the way baseball is, and you probably see a lot more of that this year on the MVP voting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Obviously, if you look at the American League, Mike Trout's the best player. That's no doubt. But when you look at who's the most valuable player, I think you had to look at the guy from New York, LeMahieu, and a few other guys. If you say the best player, Mike Trout is. There's no doubt. But being the best player don't mean you being the MVP that year.
See, and that's I'm so glad you said that. That's another thing that we talk about a lot, is that there should be a differentiation between an MVP and a player of the year, because if you're an MVP and your team's never seen a playoff, what were you most valuable at doing? You're the player.
They finished last without you.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just the way baseball. If they like a guy, they'll vote for him. And stuff like that. And I think sometimes the analytics and stuff don't truly pick what type of player guy is, But with LeMahieu, the Yankees would have just been nowhere with them the first 4 months.
Right.
But with Trout, obviously put up outstanding stats, great stats. They would be the same with Trout where they at then. So
yeah, had he been out all year, they'd have finished in the exact same place. So how valuable was he really?
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
Oh no, he's valuable, but I don't think he's the most valuable player in the league this year.
He might be the player of the year.
No.
Right. He might be the player of the year, but there's not a most valuable.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm really glad you said that. We talk about even the designated hitters, the one-inning pitchers, in the opinion of Inside Pitch, they don't belong necessarily in the Hall of Fame. They should have their own little wing. But we think, if you're a pitcher or you're a hitter, you do both. You do it all. If all you do is hit or all you do is pitch for an inning or two, you can have your little supplemental section, but not a real Hall of Famer.
Like I said, we can go on and on doing this, but it won't accomplish that because it's still going to be like it is.
Isn't that the truth? Boy, that's for sure. Oh, man. I know you have several. What are some of your most memorable moments in your career?
Well, obviously, winning the World Series in '79. With the Pirates, I was with the Giants at the beginning of the year. I went from a last place team to a World Series champ, and probably one of my batting totals, I think it was 75 or 76. I had to go 4 for 4 on the last day of the season to win it because Ken Griffey Sr. set out with Cincinnati, and I did it. And
Right.
those are two things that come to my mind when I think about my career.
And there was another one going down to the end when you went 6 for 6.
Yeah, that was really fun. I went 6 for 6 one day, and the next day, Rennie State went 7 for 7. So that was one day cheering.
He just had to one up you. But that's
Yep.
amazing. 6 for 6, 7 for 7. Oh man, you guys were something. You guys were really.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun watching you always. I was always one of your biggest fans and loved when you came to LA. Players, you were on, like we said, the Rangers, Cubs, Giants, Pirates, Dodgers, Tigers. Who are some of the favorite teammates that you had on whichever team?
Well, probably Willie Stargell. I was fortunate to play Willie Stargell, Willie McCovey, and Billy Whitmer. 3 Hall of Fame, 3 great left-hander hitters. Those are my 3 favorites.
Yeah, they're and good guys to look up to too. I mean, they played like you. They played the game the way it was meant to be played.
Well, they're truly professional because they went through a lot in their career just to get to the big leagues. So, you have to admire these guys, and some of the stories they used to tell me, it was just unbelievable.
Oh, I'm sure. It was. I know it was a struggle back then. You had in 15 seasons, you had to see some very funny things happening on or around the field. What's some of the funniest things that you've ever seen?
Well, not really, not, but, one of the, I was on the field when Rick Monday rescued Flag in
Dodger
LA.
Stadium.
So I was at
Yeah.
third base, and Rick came in from center field to do it. So that was one of the most memorable things right there.
Yeah, I was at that game too. That was absolutely incredible. I think that's the first time I ever saw the Dodger fans giving a opposing player a standing ovation. And well deserved, I must say. Yeah, that was really good. What about managers or coaches? Who did you have a favorite manager or a favorite coach? Someone who really helped you out?
Chuck Tanner by far. He's my favorite manager. He was a great manager, great individual, just unbelievable guy. There's no one even close to Chuck.
Wow, that's something. He did a lot of good work with the Pirates. I mean, he really did.
Yes.
And
Yes, he
that
did.
79 season, I know the Pirate fans loved it, but I really believe, with the We Are the Champions and all that. I mean, I think baseball fans loved the fact that you guys were the winners that year.
Well, it was fun. The guys enjoyed playing together. They really believed in each other. They really cheered for each other, and they really meant it. And I think that's what's the key right then.
I agree. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you're teaching hitting in the Las Vegas area.
I do private hitting in Las Vegas, and not only in Las Vegas, I travel all over the United States doing it. And sometimes I go out of the country teaching private lessons. So I do kids from 8 to 80, and like I was in Cleveland for 4 days, and I was in Chicago for 4 days, just teaching individuals. So I get a chance to do what I like, but I'm based out of Las Vegas at the Vegas Valley Batters Box here, and a lot of people come in, and I do a lesson for them from out of town.
Man, I can't even imagine having a bat in my hand and having Bill Madlock talk about how to do it. That's just got to be a thrill for everybody. That's something. If for people who will be in or around the Las Vegas area or would like you to come to them, do they reach you at coachbillmadlock@gmail.com?
Yes, they just do that, and I'll get back to them. We set up a time because I got a few people coming in from where they come from Utah, Alabama, and Illinois. Always from Illinois, so good Cub fans. Well, tough 5 days for the Cubs. I'm not going to get into that.
Boy, that's for sure. And let's that brings up another thing. I know the Cub fans loved that you played there and respected your the way you played the game, but it had to be tough to know that you're traded for Fergie Jenkins and then you replace Ron Santo.
Well, it wasn't tough for me. It was tough for the fans. Cause that's because it was something for them because that team had been a part of the city, been a part of the Cub franchise for I think for 10 or 11 years. The same guys going out there, so that was they didn't want it to. Wanted to see those guys broken up. Back then it was only two TV stations, was WGN. I think there was TBS, so that's the only two teams you got to watch. So the fans built a relationship with the players back then. Not so much like it is now.
Yeah, and that was, like you said, that was fans all over the country because it was the Cubs and the Braves who were on TV all the time everywhere. So there were lots of Cub fans out here in the world. Yeah, that was, I just, like you said, and you worded it very well, that, you were fine doing it, but the Cub fans didn't really like losing Fergie or Santo. But they didn't take it out on you. They loved you being there.
No, I enjoyed, like I said, I'm from Illinois, so I'm from downstate Illinois, so it was fun playing there, because the fans are great, and and especially now what the Ricketts family have did for the organization and the players that they brought in and what they did around the ballpark. If you haven't got a chance to go to Wrigley Field, that should be on your bucket list because it's quite an experience going there watching a game now.
I'll bet it is. I'll bet it is. Let's talk a little. I know in 1988 you played overseas for the Lottie Orions. How was that?
It was just playing, It's the only thing was the miles. That's a different. They have, if you see some of the Japanese players coming over here now, they're good players. I think. More so on the pitching end of it than on the everyday players. Ichiro and the kid played for the Yankees, but basically the pitchers coming over and have success. But they have good players. Obviously, you can see that in the World Game. They're always very competitive and win it sometimes. So it's just baseball. When you look at it, it's just baseball.
Well, and that's true. I just want to thank you very much for taking your time today and being with us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Like I say, it's always good to talk to people who know baseball and think a little bit like I do a little bit.
It sounds to me like we think about a lot the same way. Brian has a couple things for you too. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, you guys have a good day then, okay?
Hold on, Bill. Brian has a couple things for you.
Matter of fact, you were talking about how you had all the scholarship offers and whatnot, which is great. What made you pick baseball over basketball or football?
It was just fun. I go around to visiting schools, and you get there, you see guys weigh 280, 290 to run just as fast as you get. You could. That's not the sport for me. And then you get those guys playing basketball. I'm 5'10", 5'11". They're 6'8", 6'9". That could do the same thing I do at that end. Now it's 7 feet, 7'1" can do the same thing a 6'4" guy can do. So it's those two sports wasn't for me. I didn't think I could compete with them on a high level, but in baseball, I know I could.
Well, that makes sense. Matter of fact, did you have a favorite stadium that you played in?
Have a favorite what?
Stadium that you played in? Like, was it Dodger Stadium, or it could have been just any of them, but did you have a personal favorite?
Back then, most of the stadiums was, those cookie cutter stadium, which I played in, and, obviously Wrigley was different, and I think you get Wrigley was probably my favorite.
That makes sense, especially since, being a Illinois guy. Now, how about a least favorite stadium?
Yeah.
Did you have a
How about a what?
least favorite stadium?
No. Like I say, it's hard to have a least favorite when you're playing in the big leagues. Some are a little better than others, but they're still the big leagues.
I know when you played, this is Joe again, when you played in San Francisco at Candlestick, that had to be cold quite a few times.
Yeah, it was. Let's put it that way. It was different, but it was still the big leagues, and the guy. That's why you have to admire what a guy like Barry Bonds did in Candlestick and stuff, because I think he's probably the greatest hitter that ever played the game.
Do you really? Wow.
Yeah.
So that's high praise coming from a man like yourself.
Yeah.
Now,
okay, I have to run, so you guys have a good one, okay?
All right, Bill. Thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Okay, you guys have a good one.
All right, you
Okay.
too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. 4 batting I mean, he was just, how is that man not in the Hall of Fame? I just don't understand. Always played the game hard.
well, it's one of those things where in modern day sports, there's so much politics involved. People just hold a grudge for whatever reason. There's some folks, if they'd ever step back and talk to some of these guys, they'd realize, he is a decent human being. Just because he didn't want to put up with me back then. Of course, nowadays, a lot of those guys have retired or passed along, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's true. And I mean, he really played hard. He would, a lot of times in his career, he would go somewhere and not have a reputation, and probably some writers in particular would treat him, differently because of that. But as a fan, when you watch him play, you had to respect him. I mean, like he talked about, he didn't just win batting trophies. He worked hard, and he did. I mean, he always concentrated, always trying to be better.
Well, see, as an opposing fan, because all the teams he played for, I was always against for whatever reason, and he'd come up to bat, and it was always one of those, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Because you knew there was always a good chance no matter what, he was getting on base. He wasn't necessarily jacking for the wall.
No, he wasn't he could hit home runs. Like I said, he had 163. He could hit them, but he wasn't a home run hitter. But he could do anything, and he always put the ball in play. Hardly ever struck out. I mean, he was amazing.
See, he and I were on different ends of the spectrum. He was out there knocking the ball, hitting it in the gaps or whatnot. I was out there just missing the ball. Strikeout king.
Well, everybody has their own strengths.
Yes, right.
He was consistent, and you were consistent.
Very good point. Of course, his point about the weight, I can really get into, because when I was in high school, I think I weighed 120 pounds. So, the football coach says, why don't you come out? You could be a great running back. Why? Just because I know how to run fast to get away from those monsters?
But that's just, I mean, when you think about it in high school, knowing what he did in baseball,
yes,
to think that he only had 2 scholarship offers, but 150 for basketball and 100 of them for football, shows you what kind of athlete the man was.
No kidding.
And as those of you who are listening can see, he's a really good guy, just a hard-working good guy who deserves a lot more credit and who belongs in the Hall of Fame, along with some of those other people he named. Dave Parker, we've talked about Jim Cott, Maury Wills, Lou Whitaker, who we talked about. They belong in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Writers baseball needs to do something to get it together. They need to take, he's right, they need to take it away from the writers. Let players decide, let those really involved in the game decide, not somebody who, you didn't give me an interview or you called me something in the interview. That's just wrong. Just wrong.
Matter of fact, with that being said, now modern day, it's more the writer or the TV guy is more the guy with the attitude, and you have the player out there defending themselves from these folks.
Well, and that happens a lot too, and a lot of the players that are announcers, most of them do a really good job. But even if they do a good job, they have grudges.
True.
They're not in the Hall of Fame or think they should be, or whatever the case may be. And just because they played the game doesn't mean they're going to be fair now. now that they're in the media business.
Well, especially it's like you see a guy that played for the Twins. Just pick a random team. He played for the Twins, and now we have him announcing their games on national TV. I don't mean like a local network. Sometimes it's kind of funny because they try to be fair and unstilted, but sometimes you can't help but saying, "Yeah, he's a little jacked with that home run or that." All right, way to go, guy. He's my guy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of announcers who were, like the term is, homers, and you knew who they were cheering for, and that's one of the greatest things to me about Vin Scully, besides the talent that he had, was not once did he say, "Here we go." I mean, had you not known he worked for the Dodgers, you would never know who he wanted to win. I mean, he was just completely fair. Both sides. He was just an amazing person.
I have to agree with that because, again, as a kid, I was not a huge fan of the Dodgers, though they had some really good teams and whatnot that you had to respect. But Vin Scully, when he was calling the game on national broadcast, you're always like, oh, he's just national broadcaster. He seems to know a lot about all these teams.
Yeah, and he did. He was a really hard worker who did his background and knew all the things about what he was talking about, and great memory to remember. He like when Mr. Yankee calls us, Vinny is a lot like that, where he could say, in 1974 on a Wednesday, I remember when, and he's right. You go back, you look, and he's right, just like Mr. Yankee can do with the Yankees. It's amazing.
Good point.
It is amazing. So anyway, Mr. Bill Madlock, thank you again for being on the air. You can write to us at myinsidepitch@gmail.com for any comments you have, suggestions you have, answers to our trivia question. We did get an email at myinsidepitch@gmail.com from Mr. Yankee, who wanted to do a shout out this week based on the 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg, who spoke in front of the United Nations at 16, trying to plead her case about the climate and how we are ruining the climate for her generation. She was very passionate. She was just an incredible young lady to get the whole world to support her, and in this case, I believe the right thing. And that was a shout out from Mr. Yankee today, and I think a very good one. That's an amazing young woman. So let's go to last week's trivia question. And the question was, how many seasons did Hank Aaron hit 50 or more home runs? And we had an answer again from Mr. Yankee, who knows baseball. He had the correct answer, none. Henry Aaron never hit more than 50 home runs in a season. So, Mr. Yankee, thank you again for participating on the show. When you're not on or calling in, you still write in and give us information. We thank you very much for that. This week's trivia question: what player holds the record for the most hits in a season? What player holds the record for the most hits in a season? If you know, without Google, without cheating, please send your answer in to us at myinsidepitch@gmail.com with the player, the amount of hits, and the year that it was done if you can. If you can't do that because you're not cheating, at least just the player.
You know what they say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
I don't know who they is, but...
See, it's always good to throw Joe a curve once in a while. He's up here, he's trying to do his job, and I just have to throw him off his pace.
You just got to watch those guys throwing curveballs.
That's right. See, that's why Joe was a catcher. He was always the one calling for the curveball.
Very true.
See,
if
you actually saw Joe outside of these broadcasts, he's actually very funny and very effusive. But he's on the camera, he's very together and nice and polite and very direct with his stuff. He's a great guy, unlike me.
Why? Thank you. I think, and that's not true. You are as well. In fact, those of you in the Baldwin County, Alabama area looking for a home loan, please give our producer partner Brian Lehman a phone call at 251-616-0005, and he will be glad to help you move on towards the purchase of that property for you. That's him. And on that note,
We're going to say sayonara for the day.
we are. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening tonight, and have a great rest of the evening.
Joe, as always, it's been a lot of fun.
Brian, thank you. And again, thank you to Mr. Bill Madlock for sharing his time with us. Thank you, Bill, and have a great evening.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.